Hi, it's Anthony Mosley. I am the creator of the Texas Environmental Portrait Series, and I decided let's just go ahead and do a behind-the-scenes type of feature for the photo shoots that we do for the series. So today I am a little bit south of TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. I am at Rodak's, which specializes in coffee roasting and barbecue grills. And as you can see further down with the auto bays, they were into auto repair for a number of years before transitioning over into the food business. So I was here a little bit earlier today and chatted with Marvin, the owner, and featured him earlier today on the social media channels of the project. So let's go in and talk with Marvin and just get a tour of his place and see what he does.
So many nuances that you can pull out of coffee. It depends on how well you're able to manage the roast, and that's an art. There's so many machines nowadays that are so automated with computerized profiler from start to finish. So in other words, if I want a certain roast on a coffee, I just plug that in and dump the beans in there and let it go. You still have to interact with it, no matter how good the profiler is. Every day the barometric pressure is different, the humidity is different, and that affects the roast. So if you set up your profile on a day that the humidity is really low and you have a more humid day, then the roast profile, the coffee won't taste the same. So you still have to have some skills as a roaster to really understand what you're doing with the bean and what the bean's doing to you, talking to you, and pay attention. You know, the first part of the roast with these, I can spend time and visit with you, but the last part I kind of got to really get involved. And does that make sense to you? But anyway, you know, that's what we do.
Well,
You got any
awesome.
questions or anything?
It's been thank you so much for letting us watch and learn.
Well, sure. Thank you for coming in.
This is the boy right here that Dalton. He's done all the research, and he's got his mocha pot, and he's got what all things you
French press, and I have a lever espresso machine.
Yeah, an old Pavoni or similar to that.
So he's tried all three of those techniques.
Well, I tell you, this makes a good single origin shot. It's going to have some crema, but the concentrated flavors are phenomenal in it. And when I get a new coffee in, what I'll do with it, whether it's a sampled in or most of my brokers know what I want. So say I'm out of a Costa Rican, you know, I call them up going, man, I need a Costa, and they know I love the Terrazoo mountain range. It's just got that richness to it, that little bit more sweetness to it. So, you know, here's what we got, and they'll send it. Once in a while we'll get samples in. But again, every time I get a new batch in or a new crop, we roast it up, we rest it, I do a pour over with it, and I do an espresso shot with it. This shows me what the coffee will do, how well it performs as an espresso and or a blender, and how well it works as a pour over, and all of the unique
So
flavors.
when you do that, you're like just taking a bunch of notes.
Yeah, I mean,
about-
it's all up in here.
Oh, it's
It's
in
like,
there. Oh,
okay,
my
yeah, I
goodness.
know I can do this and this, and if somebody's looking for a single origin espresso, yeah, that's a good single origin espresso. And or if I need a nuance for a blend that we do, and I take the coffees that we have in here and create proprietary blends for coffee shops or just blends that we sell. And so I know what works well together. And again, even though I bought the same coffees from the same regions, maybe 2 or 3 years, or the same estates, again, I've got to taste and go through that with a coffee sample of the new one, because what happens is the crop, you know, can vary to the point. It's just, you know, it's not the same from bag to bag and year to
He's
year.
like that year's humidity could have been different.
Right, and you gotta compensate that. You know, whatever was good out of the, you know, Oto's Kisso estate last year and next year may be different. You know, may not have all that fruitiness to it, or it just, you know, the beans they may have been drier that year, that condition, and just not have the nuances in them. So, you know, and I mean, coffee with your degree of excitement and and the way you guys are doing it, that's cool. But you know, it's like that with anything. No matter how good the coffee is here, if you're not really into coffee, you know, if the old burned up cup of coffee is okay, you're not going to really get impressed. You're just going to taste it and go, man, that's got a lot of flavor to it, and move on. And again, same thing with wine tasting. So many of
That's what I
these
was gonna say,
nuances
this
or
is-
aromatics in the coffee that we talk about. There are flavor taste in any coffee that you get that's worth its weight. Decent coffee, you know, when you first brew it, it ought to taste good, but it ought to be, all of the flavors and all of the nuances ought to be able to come out of it when it reaches room temperature, and you ought to really enjoy the cup at room temperature.
Oh.
It shouldn't have to be a hot cup of
Uh-huh.
coffee. The hotter it is, the more that it numbs some of your senses. And, you know, here I'll make I don't know, 2 or 3 cups a day on a pour over, and as soon as I make it up, you know, so everything I drink's, I don't know, whatever it is, 60 degrees in here or something today. I mean, okay, yeah, that's what my cup is, and it's great. Yeah, I drink it warm, you know, first couple of sips I get, yeah, it's just like real coffee because it's hot, but the rest of it's, but it's not about the temperature of it, it's about the uniqueness of the flavors in it. And they so come forth the cooler the coffee gets.
I did not know that.
I remember hearing something that the temperature sometimes matters when you're doing the pour over. Like
Yep.
you want like something not quite boiling, but also not too
Exactly.
cold.
And what I do, I mean, my pour over is pretty basic. It's 350 milliliters of water for 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and it's just starting to form bubbles in the measuring cup, and I pour it in my pour over pot and Oreo and start dumping. And so at that point, the coffee's down to probably, I mean, the water's down to, I don't know, 204, 202. And so that's, makes the perfect yield.
I never knew this was as
Yeah, I mean, you can
complex
make
as
it
wine,
as complicated
yeah.
as you want. When I get a new customer in that's, you know, it's a grocery store guy, and they get excited about this, you know, the first step is, do you have a grinder or not? And mostly, I mean, you don't want to make this so hard that they step up to good coffee.
we
Now
got
they
lucky
gotta
in
go.
that respect.
I'm sorry?
We got lucky in that respect.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, Borders. Remember the Borders bookstore?
yeah,
They were going out of business
right.
a couple years back, and they were selling everything. And we bought one of their grinders. Beautiful
Man, that's
grinders.
great.
So
It was like
we got
2,400, right?
I
It was like-
think
and we
a
got
little
for
less than
300.
that. Yeah, something like that.
Man.
So we got lucky, and we've got a good grinder, and we can do all the different
Sure.
roles.
See, and those have got a good burr set in them, so it grinds the coffee.
And I remember hearing the grinder is much more important than like saying getting a better French press or like something better.
That's
equipment.
right. The more consistent, more precise you can do the grind, the more consistent cup and extraction you get. And especially, you know, when you start pushing it to espressos, you really got to work that down pretty good. You know, it's all about the amount of coffee. And once you get that dialed in, it's all about grind and tamp. And
Yeah.
when you start pulling those consistent shots, you can really feel good about drinking that shot.
Well, now we know where to come when you have some questions here and there.
Oh, man, I don't know anything. I'm just an old
Yeah,
guy trying to make it to the end.
Uh-oh.
But
Thank
let
you
me
so
get this
much.
bagged
Okay.
up for you. And,
We'll just take a look around.
All right, so I'm behind the scenes here with Marvin Rodak at Rodak Coffee Roasters and Grill. And today we're going to talk about coffee. So just give us a tour of what you've got. You've got a really cool room here with all these coffee bags from places around the world. So tell us about that.
Well, the bags represent the different coffees and the different estates and countries that we've gotten in over the years and acquired. Most of the coffees we bring in are in the burlap bags. 60 to 70 kilo bags are how they ship. And a lot of the better known coffee growers produce a fancy bag. Some of them don't quite have the funds to produce a fancy bag, so they're pretty generic. But the bag's cool, but what's in the bag is better, and that's specially grade coffee, and that's what we bring in here, and that represents the top 5% of the coffees grown throughout the world. Luckily, over the last 25 years that we've been able to bring coffee in and roast it, we've developed a lot of good relationships with importers and brokers, and get the best of the best stuff there is. And we'll be happy to show you what the coffee looks like before we roast it. In here is a room that we keep our coffee in. We've got a teak wood floor, so it works with the moisture content. This room is sealed up, so it's able to maintain the coffee in a controlled environment. A lot of the coffees that we bring in come in just the natural burlap bags like this. This is what the coffee looks like before we roast it. Just a green pea or a bean or seed out of the fruit. The coffee, when it's ripe and ready to harvest from the tree, is actually a red cherry, like a cherry in a grocery store, and it's very sweet to eat. Once that coffee cherry is harvested, then it's either naturally fermented or dried with the fruit on it, or partially fermented and washed off, and that has a big finish on the end product with the coffee flavor to it, whether it's got a lot of fermentation to it or more cleaner coffee. But all of these coffees that we bring in, we got close to 50 single origin coffees in here, so that's a lot of choices and a lot of real good coffees to drink. We also do custom blending, and then we've got regular blends that we put together ourselves, and coffees from all over the world, from island coffees. We've got coffee out of Nepal. We've got some of the world's best Cup of Excellence award-winning coffees in here out of Panama and Costa Rica. Man, you name it, and we've got it.
Nice. Let's step out here, Marvin, and I want to get a shot of your facility here. And in the back, and we'll probably do a tour of this some other time, you have got an auto repair place back there.
Yes.
So that's how you started out, but then you migrated into coffee. And I would love for you to share the story of, which I put in the caption for the feature that I posted today, about how you started off as an auto repair place, but then customers really wanted something more in their coffee. And then tell us about David Castle and Royal Coffee. And
that's man, that goes back many years. But we started out an auto repair business, specializing in Cadillacs, old car restorations. The business started in 1976. Got tired of just having old coffee on a Bun coffee maker, no offense to Bun, but by 4 o'clock in the afternoon the coffee's dried out and burned up in it, and you add water to it and slice it around and drink it. So I thought, man, there's got to be a better way. Coffee smells so good when you grind it, or when you used to open the old canned coffee out of the grocery stores. You got to be able to get some of that taste out. So with researching, I found out about roasting the coffee beans and started home roasting as a hobby. And that translated to coming up here to the shop and roasting coffee. And I'd always roast it for the afternoon before the next morning and let the coffee rest overnight. We'd brew the coffee up next morning. Well, the smell and the aroma of roasted coffee made our shop not smell like gasoline and oil and burnt air conditioner parts and brakes and brake dust. And
different from every other place, for sure.
You got it. And also the coffee we had for our customers was incredibly good. They liked it. They liked the aroma, and they all started wanting to buy coffee. And with 8 technicians here, booming business, I did not want to get in a coffee roasting business. I had all I could handle, just keeping up with what we had going. Well, anyway, long story short, owned the building, customer pressure, and we started coffee roasting on a small scale. Got our little 1-pound roaster and got going, got some 4 or 5 different beans we were roasting. And as that business grew, we got to the point that we needed to buy our coffee in a more economical way. So we started looking for coffee brokers to buy from, to be able to buy full sacks or full bags of coffee. The first place that popped up on the search was Royal Coffee out in Oakland, California. They're one of the largest brokers in the U.S. and called out there and got a hold of a guy, coffee broker out there. His name was David Castle, and got on the phone, and man, we were so excited we had reached the point where we could actually buy our first whole bag of coffee. Man, we hit it big time. So we get David on the phone and introduce myself to him. He wanted to know how he could help us, and I told him I need a bag of coffee, a whole full bag of it. Man, it was just dead silence. And then all of a sudden he asked me, he says, "Is this a joke?" And I said, "No, man, it's not a joke. I'm needing a full whole bag of it. I mean, the complete bag, all of it." He goes, "Man, I don't know where you're from," but he goes, "I'm a broker. I deal in containers of coffee, anywhere from 270 to 330 bags of coffee at a time. It's not even worth my time to answer the phone for one bag of coffee." He goes, "What do you do?" So I told him we was an auto repair and had a coffee going on the sides. And he goes, "Man, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. Man, nobody does that. That's nuts." He goes, "I'll tell you what, that's so stupid, I'm going to help you." And we became friends over the years, and he helped guide me and mentored me into the next steps that we needed to take, and coffees to bring in, and how to blend, and just get my business going. He eventually left there and started a brokerage firm, and he's since retired from that. And I think he's moved back to Canada. I've lost track of him the last few years, but over the last 15, 18 years, we've really stayed close. And every time we had a conversation, living out there in California, driving 5 home, he said every time he'd see a Cadillac, he'd think about me and laugh. I was good for his smile on his face every day.
That's a great story. And we've also got some really cool coffee equipment over here. Tell us about this.
Yeah, these are a lot of antique or vintage coffee makers. Most of them are vacuum pots, and there's a few early version percolators. The vacuum pots really intrigued me because they actually make an incredible cup of coffee. Part of making good coffee is being able to control the water temperature and being able to control the time that you steep or extract the coffee. And what the vacuum pots did is they allowed you to put the water in the bottom, you put it over the burner and get the water boiling, and you can see the sandpipe or the stem from the top coming down. It's a couple of inches off the bottom. So as the water boiled, the steam pressure would actually push the hot water up into the top where you would have the grounds. And as long as you maintain the heat to the bottom of it, it would hold the coffee up there. The coffee in the top, even though it was rolling, was not boiling. It was the steam pressure and the steam pushing through the water. So the water would be probably about 205, 206, which is perfect brewing temperature. Once you completed your steeping, then you remove the coffee pot from the burner, and as it cooled down, the low pressure here created a vacuum and pulled the coffee back through the grounds, and that's where you get the term vacuum cool. Pot coffee.
Yeah, very nice. And then you've got some fancy coffee equipment over here. These must be your roasting machines.
Yes, these are our little 1 pound roasters. Because we roast per order, we run these nearly every day. You walk in within 18 minutes, you get a pound of coffee out of them. We can produce a lot of coffees with these. A cycle on a coffee is 18 to 20 minutes. Our bigger machine over there is our commercial roaster. We actually had that custom built for our style of business or our volume of business. Because we roast per order, we don't over roast or have a lot of any excess pre-roasted coffee. So all of our coffee shops or commercial accounts or even bigger office customers, whatever, if they're wanting 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds of coffee, we use a commercial roaster for that. For our customers, like we had in here a few minutes ago, we use our 1 pound roasters. And this allows us to do the small batches of the customer base and keep their coffee fresh and turned over, and they come back in here more frequently and buy different coffees, or we buy the same one, but at least we're able to present it to them in the freshest way and not over roasted and not having been set on the shelf getting stale.
Very cool. Now, we're not going to talk about your grills at all today because we're going to come back and do a whole feature on that because Marvin's such a cool guy. I need an excuse to come back. But he's got all types of fun and grill stuff over here. And then, might be my most favorite wall over here. This wonderful historic collection of cast iron. He's got Griswold, he's got Wagner. think both of those were made in Ohio back in the day.
Yeah, back in the old days.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got some Victors and Burlingtons, got an old Erie up there at 14. And I know we're going to talk about grills next time, but what's cool is these ceramic grills, the Primos. We've got some old Griswold corn stick pans. You heat those up and do cornbread on the Primo grills, and that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Get that outdoor flavor into your corn sticks.
And then he's got a whole bunch of stuff over here, which we'll talk about as well, from rubs to sauces to wood to whatever, but we'll save that for next time. Marvin, thank you so much for this wonderful tour of coffee. It was great to hear you break this down, and I think one of your visitors said it really well when she said it's as complex as wine. There's as much that goes into it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you. Appreciate you coming in. It's sure fun what you're doing, and thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right, thank you so much. We'll connect next time.
All righty.
Bye.